Hello, my name is Diana Abadati, and this is my first time doing a video on my crafting. And so I know I'm going to make mistakes, but I think that's part of the fun in learning is making mistakes or having a vision, and then when I go to create, when it doesn't turn out, being able to revise or modify what I originally thought was going to look great. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to take a basic white piece of paper. It's 8.5 by 11, and I'm going to cut it in half at the 4 1/4 mark. On this Stampin' Up cutter, it has both the score blade and the cutting blade. I'm going to use the cutting blade to cut this right at 4 1/4. Now I'm going to flip my paper. I'm going to set one piece aside, and I'm going to go ahead and score it at 5 1/2. So I move both blades up. I'm not going to press too hard. You can actually cut through the paper if you press too hard. So I'm just going to do a light press, and don't know if you can see it, but it does a beautiful job scoring your paper. I then take my bone folder and press it down so I get a nice flat fold. Next, I'm going to take my black sheet of paper and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to cut it, but this time I'm going to go down by 1/4 inch. So I'm going to do 5 1/4 by 4. And of course, this will not need to be scored. So this I want to set aside. It is my 5 1/4 by 4 inch, which will be laid on top of the base of the card. Next, I'm going to take my designer series paper, True Love, and I'm going to cut this down to 5 by 3 3/4. And the one thing I love about this particular cutter is that it has this arm that flips out so that when you're working with a larger sheet of paper up to 17 inches, it will come out large enough to accommodate the larger sheets of paper. So again, we're going to go to 5 by 3 3/4. We now have our sheet of paper that is going to be layered like so. Now that I have my paper cut out, I have an idea where I want my hummingbird to go. So now we're going to stamp him, and then we will have to fussy cut this out because this particular stamp set does not have any dies. Next, I'm going to pull in all of my inks. I'll use the Memento black ink because it is a water-based, it is fast drying, and it does not bleed into these Stampin' Up markers and blends in the ink pad. And for my bird, I really want to use the Granny Apple Green. I actually had to look up on the website and see what colors typically are hummingbirds, and I found that they come in a beautiful array of colors, but I happen to really like these colors here. So I'm going to do my best to get a total of these 3 colors. Pacific Point, I do not have the blends, so I have my pen here, my Stampin' Right pen, in case I want to use it. So I'm going to start. I also have my little chamois because I like to keep everything clean. As soon as I use my stamps, I will clean those off before I put them away. So I'm going to go ahead and start by inking up my hummingbird. And I actually put, in this case, since this particular one is supposed to look like a watercolor, there's 2. You have the outline of the bird, and then you also have the second one, which is a the second the second stamp that you can use, which is to color him in. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp up the outline first really well, and you can see, I'll move this out of the way, but you can see that it's stamped up quite well. We're going to go ahead and use this pad here just to help get a really good quality stamp. So I'm going to start by, because this is a brand new stamp, I'm going to stamp off on my scrap piece of paper first. And it looks like it's a pretty good quality stamp. So the image turned out really well, so I feel comfortable going ahead and putting it on my sheet of paper. This is actually the other half of the paper that I cut out for the card base. So I'm going to stamp that here. I'm going to let it sit for just a second, kind of give it some even pressure all the way around, and then I'm just going to lift it straight up. I'm very happy with that. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a sentiment, and in this case I'm going to go with Best Wishes. So I'm going to stick that here on my block. So again, I'm going to stamp once off. Looks really nice. And now I'm going to stamp on the piece of paper. Again, letting it sit for just a second and then pulling it straight up, and it is a beautiful, beautiful stamp. So now we're going to look at coloring in our bird. Now, what we're going to do is you're going to see that we can close the lid here because I am accident prone, and of course I will make a huge mess if I don't close it up. So next, you'll notice that the stamp is not intended to cover the bird perfectly within the lines, and that's because it is supposed to give it more of a watercolor look. So there's two ways we could do this. I could either use my ink pad and just ink certain parts. I could use a dauber and help color it in using whatever color I want where, or I could use my blendable markers. I think in this case, I'm actually, because I want it to be really vibrant, the more I think about it, the more I think I am going to start by putting my Granny Apple green just to get kind of a base color on my bird. So I'm gonna go ahead and again, because this is the first time that I've used this ink pad, I'm going to stamp and make sure I like the color. I'm going to do a second stamp because I want it to be a much lighter color. See what the quality of the second stamp is. I like that a lot. So I am going to do the same, but this time I'm going to stamp off on my scratch paper, and then I'm going to use my second stamp for my project. Okay, and now we're going to line this up as best as we can, realizing we don't have to be perfect. Not intended to be perfect. It's supposed to look like a watercolor. Good, I like it. My bird on the top part here to have a little bit of the blue and into his tail. So again, I'm going to take my ink pad and I am going to try to just get the edges, like his little wings here, and maybe his little tail feathers in the blue. And because I want this to be really dark and vibrant, I'm not going to stamp it off. I'm going to try to stamp it directly over what we've already stamped. And I might come down a little bit further, since his wings do come down further into his body. Okay. Looks like I might even want to come all the way down into his chest. I'm going to do like just a straight row here. Okay. So I moved my ink way off to the side, so there's no chance I'll ruin my project by touching it. And I'm going to try to stamp right over the top. And we're going to lift it. Okay, that looks pretty good. And next I'm going to use the purple, but in this case, I'm gonna take my dark purple and I'm just gonna color him in the bottom of his belly. And I am somewhat pleased with that, but not finding it to be exactly what I was hoping for. So I am going to, thinking about adding a little bit of yellow. This is so saffron, and I do my bird again because I'm really not pleased with the coloring on this one. It didn't turn out, I think I should have stamped that off so it wasn't quite so dark. I think the lighter blue would have been a much prettier choice. So I'm going to do him again. I'm going to again grab my bird, put it on here, and we will ink it up with the Momentum Black. For me, that's part of the fun, is I'm not always going to do it perfectly. I mean, we're experimenting and learning, you know, what works well, what looks good, what doesn't. And so we're going to try this again. We're going to stamp our bird. I'm going to give it a good press. Cover my ink. And then lift. Again, that looks great. Now I've got my green. And I'm going to stamp him up really well, but this time we're going to stamp off as we did the first time. And we are going to line this up. I'm going to move this down a little bit more so I have a better view. I hope it's still in the camera view. And we're going to stamp. Okay, since I'm mainly looking for the underneath part and under the tail, we're going to try stamping on top of that and see what we think. I like that a lot. So again, I'm going to try mostly for the underbelly part. I'm going to do less on the edges. So here I'm actually, hope you can see this, I'm trying my best to just get a little bit on the belly, underbelly, and the edge. And again, I am going to, since it's such a light color, I'm going to try to the yellow I think would be prettier if it's darker. Nice, you can see a little bit of the yellow, so that's fantastic. I am going to use the purple. I'm going to try really hard to put the purple more so on the top of his head and his tail. So I'm going to try to do mostly around the head, here, the edges. And I don't know if you can tell, but I'm actually just trying to get kind of along the edges of his head. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to try to do a little bit of the tips of the tail, more so than anything, as best I can. And this time, I'm not going to stamp off. I'm going to test it, though, on this, to see if I like how that looks. And I'm okay if there's a little bit on the tip of the wing. I actually think that does look good. I'm going to try that. I do like the lighter color. I might just try it without doing a second stamp. And just have it offset a little bit so you do see a little bit of the purple. Okay. like it. It's not quite as vibrant as I was hoping for, or as light. I think I'm going to try to go over it just a little bit with the pen. And I actually think I kind of like this a little better on the outside. And then we'll kind of do the same thing over here where I see a little bit of white. I'll just try to fill in the tips. And where I see a little extra light where it's not completely filled in. And I think I'm going to leave him just the way he is. Maybe a little more purple here. Highland Heather. And down here around the tail. Okay, I think I like the looks of that much more so. So I'm ready to assemble my cards. I've got my card base. I'm going to put my glue on the back. I did already glue these together. I wanted to, on this side, I wanted to have my ribbon showing. So I am going to cut my ribbon. And now I'm going to use some of my tape to help hold it down, hold it into place. Just regular Scotch tape. To start with. And we'll try to make it nice and straight. And here I have a little bit of a measuring guide so I can kind of see. I've got about 1/4 of an inch. Yeah. So now I'm going to take this down. And now I'm ready to design. I do like using the Stampin' Seal. It is a very nice grip to it, especially because I have this ribbon here, and it takes a very light touch. Otherwise it will pick up your paper, and that is never any fun. So I'm going to make sure I get lots of adhesive there and here and on this side. Okay, the nice thing is it takes a little bit before it will actually adhere. That's why I like the Stampin' Seal. You have a minute before it will actually really stick to your project. Okay, now for my hummingbirds that I cut out. I did the fussy cut around each of these. I want to put them on dimensionals. And so I have these little dimensionals, and I'm just going to stick them randomly on and the backs peel off really easy most of the time. And at times, well, this one came off, so I'm going to use it instead. Going to actually cut it. And this way I have a little more stability on the wing tip and the tail feathers on the back here. Okay, and this little guy is probably going to go like so. I'm going to move him back so I have plenty of room for this guy. And this one is going to be sitting more straight up. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing, put a few little dimensionals on here. He's more here. And then we've got our best wishes. We're going to stick here. Trying to decide. I do like it here. No, it looks like we got a lot in this one corner, but I am happy with that. So I am going to, in this case, I'm wondering if I want it over here more. Maybe. I think I will. This guy, might move him over just a tad. Just so it looks like we have a little more color across the top. Trying to keep his wings more so on the paper. So I'll do him for his wing. Gets tucked under this guy a little bit. There we go. I like that better. All right, and there you have it. And then on my card, we will put a sentiment on the inside, my brownie apple, and my so saffron. So we're going to check it out and see which one we like better. So I think we will go with, when you open the card, might actually do probably going to be it would be too much paper. So I think when you open the inside, I think we'll have the nice, bright, colorful. Okay, so I've cut down my paper and I do have my card base, and this time I went ahead and I cut it on the 5.5 and then scored it on the 4 1/4, and so it will be folded here on the long side. And then I have my Highland Heather, which is cut at 5 1/4 and 4 inches, and then I have Purple Posy, and that's 5 inches by 3 3/4. Now, what I'm not sure about is if I go to stamp these flowers, how is it going to turn out if I put the tone on tone? And I'm not really sure which way I'm going to like it best. So I went ahead and I'm just using a scrap piece of paper. This paper's torn, and I'm going to use it just so that I can practice doing my flower in the Purple Posy. So with that said, I already have my mat under here because I have my photopolymer stamp, and it will create a better stamp when you have something with a little bit of pad. And so I'm now opening my Highland Heather ink, and I am going to use this piece here, and I had another piece which is a little small, and I'm going to see if I really like this color on one, either the colored paper or the plain paper better. And again, I'm going to stamp off first because I have not used this stamp yet, and great, it turned out very nice. So I'm going to go ahead and try it on this one. I want to get a little bit of the stem there and come down. And then I actually really do like that. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this side. But before I go too far, I just want to, yeah, I do. I like that a lot. And so I think we're going to go with that color. So with that said, we'll move this out of the way. I'm going to put this here, and we will go ahead and stamp our image. So I don't want it to go down too far, but I do want to have it kind of look as though it's coming, looping down toward the center. And then I'm going to do the same on the right side. And we're going to have this come down, kind of in a downward. And it doesn't matter if it's not absolutely perfect. And then I'm going to kind of create, I kind of want a bunch of flowers. So this one I'm going to stamp off just a little bit. And then this next one, I am definitely going to keep the stem from showing, from stamping too much. So I'm going to stick my sheet of paper here, my scrap, and I'm going to line this up, hoping to get this in here to where it doesn't overlap too much. Sorry if my head is in the way. Okay, so we're going to try that. Now we've got our cluster of flowers. So now we're going to use the second flower. It's actually this stamp for coloring it in. And to color this one in, I'm actually going to go even a little bit light. And with the gorgeous grape, I'm probably going to try stamping off and then doing a second stamp. And I do, I like the second stamp much better. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and stamp off, and then very pretty. So this is the one we're going to use, and next we are going to stamp our hummingbird. But what I'm hoping to do is get our hummingbird in such a way that even he may not be 100% on here. This time I'm going to do the initial stamp with the So Saffron. And before I make a huge mess, we are going to close Gorgeous Grape. And I'm going to get the black to stamp his image. We put his little beak right here. And I accidentally got my card. I'm notorious for doing little boo-boos like that. As hard as I try not to, I do. Okay, but we'll be able to cover that up. The next thing I want to do is I really want to try to mirror image instead of having two birds heading in the same direction. I am going to try to mirror image him, and I'm going to do that by stamping the image and then placing it on my Stampin' Up silicone sheet. Pull this off and rather quickly try to turn it around. I'm I'm going to drop it in here and press. And now I'm going to pick this up, and there we go. I'm actually very pleased with this. And now we're done with this one. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is prepare our stamp for our hummingbirds. The So Saffron. And again, we're going to try to line it up as best as I can. Try to give it an even press. And then we will use our ink pad again to mirror image my beautiful little hummingbird. This one might be a little harder to line it up. I've not tried to do a two-step stamp using the mirror image, but this yellow is very light, and let's just cross our fingers that we lined that up well enough. We're a little bit off, but I think we can live with that. Okay, so we will clean this off. And now we're going to use a little bit of green, Granny Apple Green. And this is the light Granny Apple Green. We're going to add a little bit of color under the belly here and on his wings, tail. I'm going to give him just a little bit on his head as well. Right up to his beak and again down his chest. And this one we'll do a little bit differently. We'll color in his her wings. Kind of the Granny Apple. And we'll put a little bit on the outside of these wings. See how that looks. The light might be kind of cool. Okay. This one, I think I'm going to color that whole wing, bottom part of his body. Okay, a little bit different. And now you put something over that to cover it. You can use it for so many different types of cards. And I'm probably going to put this right between the two birds. However, I am thinking about some ribbon across the bottom. So we will pull some of that in and see what that looks like with this. Okay, so another option might be that we use this really dark one and we put this on top of it. And I actually like that a lot. I might use that. We will see. And then this might actually be a little too much. This might be kind of a perfect all by itself. because I'm not interested in hiding too much of my birds, of the hummingbirds. This here is my ovals punch. We have gorgeous grape and Highland heather. We'll try that. Try a couple different things. Okay, so we'll use the Memento black ink, and of course we're going to move that out of the way. We will take our best wishes, make sure we're on our pad, and we're going to stamp it here at the top. Pull it up. Don't ruin my project. Okay, and then the next thing, oh, I did this backwards. Dang it. Best wishes is going to go right here in the center. We're going to try to line that up so that I get all of my B in there, and we get all of the wishes, the S. I think we've got it. And see, I made the mistake because I should have cut this off so that I wasn't going to cut out, but I will keep this and I will use it on another project. I'm hoping I have enough of this where I can get a background possibly out of it. Looks like I'm going to get lucky and be able to cut that out. All right. So now we've got best wishes here. Little spot there. I may still do this. Okay. I found these little white pearls, and I think I'm going to try to put these on because they're a little more dainty, and I think they're more appropriate for this size of project. So I'm just going to randomly start putting some of these on here. So there we have those 3, and I'm going to start attaching this to the card base. So I have my stamp and seal. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've glued all this down. I attached my ribbon to the back, wrapped it all the way around to the very edge, and on both sides, and taped it down just like I did on the previous card. And now and then I put a little glue dot just to kind of hold that in place. And then now I'm going to add a couple of dimensionals, and these dimensionals will help to lift the card just a little bit. Here we go. I want to use a pack I've already started using. We'll put one right here and one here, and of course one on each corner to help hold it in place nice and flat anyway. Okay, get these off. So now we will position this like so. Kind of want it to be right between these guys, but at the same time I want it to show the bottom of the ribbon. And then on the inside we are going to just put a piece of the Highland heather. So we'll cut another piece of Highland heather, and as well as the purple posy, and then that will be inside for the sentiment. So we'll cut those down.